Is locked in, presenting from the unit medicine 2. This is a 54-year-old ex-army man from Tiruvarur who presented with the following complaints. Non-verbalizing for the past 5 days with recurrent absence and generalized tonic-clonic seizures, quadriplegia with flexion of the bilateral upper limbs, and preserved cognition. The patient was apparently well till 14th of last month when he developed right hypochondriac pain with multiple episodes of vomiting, ball rolling sensation to the abdomen with decreased intake of food. He was consuming only a semi-solid liquid diet because of the above complaints. He had generalized fatigue and tiredness. For the above complaints, he saw a local hospital and it revealed an acute abdominal cholecystitis with no biliary obstruction. He was referred to a higher center for the same. At this higher hospital, he underwent further testing. He was found to have a calculus cholecystitis. However, at presentation, he was found to have a sodium only 96 with a serum osmolality of 213, and he was admitted on the 1st of March for medical management of dysalkalitemia. He was started on 3% saline in this hospital, and on 5th, this was started on the 1st of March, and on 5th, he developed an episode of staring spell, which was followed half an hour later by a generalized tonic-clonic seizure, which lasted for 2 minutes. He was started on anti-epileptics and shifted to the ICUs. MRI and EEG done were within normal limits. He had more episodes of absence and generalized tonic-clonic seizures during the next 5 days, which progressively worsened to him being non-verbalizing, with having quadriplegia with flexion of the bilateral upper limbs. However, his cognition was preserved. A lumbar puncture done in this hospital was normal. All viral and autoimmune markers were also negative. This patient had a past history of hypertension. He was a hypertensive for 5 years on chlorthalidone, losartan, and bisoprolol. He is a chronic ethanol consumer for the past 20 years. On examination, there was no pallor, cyanosis, clubbing, icterus, lymphadenopathy, or fetal edema. His pulse was 106 per minute. BP was 130 by 70. GBP was not elevated. Coming to systemic examination, cardiovascular, respiratory, and abdominal examination were within normal limits. Coming to CNS examinations, he was conscious and oriented. Visual acuity was normal. His vertical gaze was normal, however, horizontal gaze palsy was present. There was no ptosis, pupillary reflex was present. Corneal and conjunctival reflex were present. Jaw jerk was exaggerated. There was no deviation of the angle of mouth or decrease in nasolabial fold. Gag was decreased, and he was unable to, 11th and 12th nerves, he was unable to form. There was flexion of the bilateral upper limbs. Bulk was preserved bilaterally. Tremors were present. There were involuntary muscle contractions. Bilateral upper and lower limbs were hypertonic. Power was 2 by 5 in bilateral upper limbs and 1 by 5 in bilateral lower limbs. Reflexes were exaggerated. Biceps, triceps, and supinator were 3 plus bilaterally. Patellar and ankle clonus were present, and plantars were extensor bilaterally. There was no neck stiffness. This was a 54-year-old male who presented with a history of multiple episodes of absence and generalized tonic-clonic seizures with quadriplegia, anarthria, and hypertonicity of bilateral upper and lower limbs for the past 5 days. In this scenario, I would consider a locked-in syndrome in view of quadriplegia, anarthria with preserved consciousness and horizontal and vertical eye movements, involving the bilateral pontine region. The differential diagnoses that we had considered were an acute pontine cerebrovascular accident, an acute meningoencephalitis, a brainstem tumor or an abscess, osmotic demyelination syndrome, multiple sclerosis affecting the ventral pons. The other differentials we considered were a progressive encephalomyelitis with rigidity and myoclonus, a stiff person syndrome, paraneoplastic, akinetic mutism, catatonia, and Parkinson's disease. Laboratory evaluation, metabolic wise, there were no significant abnormality when he presented to our hospital. We did a CSF analysis which did not show any signs of any meningitis. The cytospin was negative. Oligoclonal bands are awaited. This was the MRI finding that he underwent an MRI where this was a characteristic finding that we found. In the pontine region, the sign is called an omega or a trident sign on T2 weighted images. T1 hypointense and long TR hyperintensities were seen involving the pons centrally. This classical trident shape is seen, showing diffusion restriction, and these features are suggestive of an osmotic demyelination syndrome. Coming to osmotic demyelination syndrome, it is a rare entity which involves both central pontine and extrapontine myelinolysis, and the clinical manifestations are typically delayed for 2 to 6 days after a rapid correction of hyponatremia. The clinical features involve dysarthria, dysphagia, paraparesis or quadriparesis, behavioral disturbances, movement disorders, seizures, lethargy, and obtundation, and coma, which are frequently irreversible. Usually, ODS occurs with rapid correction of hyponatremia, which has been present for more than 2 to 3 days. and in majority of the cases, the sodium at presentation is less than 105. Few patients that are particularly susceptible to this condition who can develop at slower rates of correction and with less severe hyponatremia are chronic alcoholics, patients who are malnutrition, hypokalemia, and post-liver transplantation patients. Coming to why this occurs, when there is an acute hyponatremia, as we can see in the diagram, the water enters from an area of low osmolality to a higher osmolality, and there is cell swelling in this case. But if it has been ongoing for around 2 to 3 days, then there are mechanisms which cause restoration of cell volume by the sodium potassium ATPase channel and organic solute transporters, which remove inorganic and organic solutes and water from the cell. In cells that have been chronically adapted to hyponatremia, when we rapidly correct the hyponatremia, there is a breakdown of the blood-brain barrier, exposure of the glial cells to cytokines and complements with an axonal shear injury, and induction of apoptosis. This leads to osmotic demyelination. Coming to few articles reviewing osmotic demyelination. If you look at the article on the right, this was data that was done on 56 patients, 56 patients who underwent hyponatremia correction. And what they have noticed was there were no neurological complications observed among patients who were corrected with less than 12 millimole per 24 hours, or less than 18 millimoles per 48 hours. And it was concluded that patients with severe chronic hyponatremia are likely to neurological complications can be avoided when their electrolyte disturbance is corrected slowly. Now, if you look at the article on the left, this was a 47-year-old male who presented with hyponatremia and was corrected slowly as per the recommended guidelines, but still developed an extrapontine and a central pontine myelinolysis. And in this patient was found to be hypokalemic, and there has been an association that has been drawn with a concomitant hypokalemia, which can lead to ODS in patients even when they are even when they are corrected as per recommended guidelines. In a study in Sweden, which was a nationwide study where 83 individuals who developed ODS were identified. Among this, 69.9% of the patients were found to be chronic alcoholics, 75% patients were found to have a sodium of less than 110, and 67.5 patients were found to be hypokalemic. The treatment for a locked-in syndrome, for an osmotic demyelination syndrome, is predominantly rehabilitation. Intensive nursing care and intensive and early rehabilitation, including physiotherapy and respiratory, swallowing and speech training, are what has been found to have benefits for the patients. However, a few case reports of patients who have developed osmotic demyelination syndrome and have been and for whom a rapid reinduction of hyponatremia was done within a few hours of developing the symptoms was found to show an alleviation of spasticity and a full neurological recovery. In the case report on the left, a 76-year-old male who developed osmotic demyelination syndrome post hyponatremia correction, he was given a rapid reinduction of hyponatremia, which led to alleviation of spasticity and full neurological recovery. However, there have been no randomized control trials for the same. Coming to what my learning points are, identify predisposing risk factors to develop osmotic demyelination syndrome. Our correction rate that we follow is 8 to 10 milliequivalents per liters per day. And however, in patients who have predisposing factors, as mentioned earlier, a correction of 4 to 6 milliequivalents per liter per day is advised. MRI features characteristic of osmotic demyelination syndrome, as we have seen earlier, an omega or a trident sign involving the pontine region. And mainstay of treatment is early rehabilitation, including respiratory swallowing and speech therapy. Coming to what our patient had, our patient presented 5 days after the development of the symptoms and hence was initiated on early rehabilitative measures.
Thanks, David. Amit, do you have anything to add?
Am I audible?
Yep, you are.
Okay, just wanted to emphasize what David had spoken. When you normally see hyponatremia as one of the most common electrolyte disorder, and a gradual and controlled correction is essential to prevent complication. However, even when sodium is corrected according to the guidelines, if the patient has risk factors like alcohol consumption, malnutrition, and hyponatremia, there are more chances that the patient will develop a osmotic demyelination syndrome. So it's really and if the patient develop osmotic demyelination syndrome, long-term prognosis is very poor. More than 60% will end up either in death or disability. So it's important to identify who are at the risk of osmotic demyelination syndrome. And normally, if there are no risk, you can correct around 8 to 12 per day. And if there are risk factors for osmotic demyelination, in that case, maybe we can correct around 4 to 6 unless there are severe symptoms and with very frequent measurement of sodium levels. Yeah, that's all.
Thanks, Amit. Any other comments?
Just one question. Maybe I missed it. Why did this patient develop osmotic demyelination? What was the reason for this patient?
So for this patient, as for the outside hospital records, the sodium was not corrected rapidly. At induction, it was 96 on the 1st of March, and it was corrected to 115 by the 5th of March. However, our patient had a risk factor. He was a chronic ethanol consumer for the past 10 years with daily consumption of ethanol, which is a predisposing factor to developing. So that is one of the reasons we
Also,
had.
he had hypokalemia, and we don't know how exactly they've corrected the sodium at outside hospital. Normally, should if there are risk factor, the correction rate should be less than what you correct normally, sir. So we are assuming that because maybe the sodium was not corrected properly, given the fact that he also had chronic alcoholism and a hypokalemia at presentation, and also sodium being less than 105, he had multiple risk factors for developing osmotic demyelination syndrome, sir.
Was there any indication to suggest that he was having a chronic hyponatremia?
So he had decreased intake from February 14th itself, and he was on chlorthalidone as part of his antihypertensives. So the hyponatremia would probably have been for more than 2 to 3 days, for which would require a slow correction of the sodium levels.
Yeah, maybe unless we have previous recordings, because patients who have chronic hyponatremia are the ones who may be more likely going into ODS, especially when you're trying to correct it too rapidly as compared to those who have developed it in a short period of time. They may be able to sustain it better than the chronic ones. So that's the other thing to be kept in mind. But as I think, as you have correctly highlighted, patients with risk factors. So basically, the take-home message is the risk factors of alcoholic malnutrition, hypokalemia are patients where you should go slow on the corrections as compared to the prescribed rate of correction. So I think that is well taken. And also to keep it in mind that anybody who has been documented as a chronic hyponatremia, all the more reasons to be a little slower there as compared to those who have developed hyponatremia over a short period of time. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Medicine 2. We'll go on to